Hello, my name is Tim McDaniel. I'm the environmental manager here at Navistar in Springfield. Today we're going to do a contractor orientation over the environmental policies, the handling of hazardous chemicals, wastes, and spills. Our Springfield operations are ISO 14001 certified. That's an international voluntary standard for environmental management. And as part of that, we want contractors coming onto the property to know about our key procedures, as well as to know about our environmental policy. The full environmental policy is located on Navistar's internet website, if you would like to read it. I'll provide a summary of it here, and we use this graphic diagram to show the key parts of it. The first part I want to talk about, and the most important one, is compliance. That's the baseline. Everything starts there. Compliance just means following the rules. Those can be EPA's rules, OSHA's rules, or Navistar's rules. But the rules that we ask you to follow around environmental are the starting point for everything that we do. Examples of following the rules: getting trained here today, making sure that all containers, chemicals and wastes are properly labeled so that we know what's in them, and properly reporting spills to loss prevention. Going around the policy wheel, we also have continual improvement. We're looking at environmental improvement opportunities here. Ways to improve the environment by reducing energy, increasing recycling, and preventing wastes. We also strive to have sustainable facilities. That means that we don't just try to get the cheapest project performed, but we look at improving safety and environmental at the same time. We want people involved. People are our stakeholders. So it's important to us that our customers and our share owners have information, and we put that out on our corporate internet site with an annual report for sustainability. Also, we share information locally, and if you have questions, please get those through your supervisor and project manager back to us so that we can try to answer those. So we want you to know about our environmental programs, and if you have suggestions for us, please provide that feedback. We are also involved in working with the government in voluntary ways when they have partnership opportunities. Quite often the EPA and the Department of Energy will have voluntary programs. And finally, we do have a full environmental management program at World Headquarters and here at Springfield. So it's not just stuck in the corner. We have a business plan, we have a budget, and we fully operate the entire program to stay in compliance with the laws and to make improvements. One of the important things on the environmental programs for contractors is to know the chemicals that you will be bringing on site. So your project lead should be bringing to our project manager a list of all of the chemicals that you're bringing, and you should, of course, maintain those safety data sheets here on the property. So your first stop, if you have questions about those chemicals, is with your own project manager. It may be that Navistar is reviewing those chemicals as you bring them on site and would provide feedback for you. If you have questions about the chemicals that we are using in the workplace area where your contract work is involved, then through your project lead, get a hold of us and we will provide you with the safety data sheets. And those are available on the off shift by contacting loss prevention, and on the first shifts contacting the safety or the environmental department to get those. We require that all chemical containers be labeled. Your original container from your manufacturer has the hazard chemical information provided. However, if that material is moved into a different container, that container also has to have labeling. These are examples of the labels that we use here at Navistar. If it is a hazardous chemical, which most chemicals will be, it will have a yellow label here. And that yellow label will identify the material and the hazards of that chemical. If it is listed as a non-hazardous chemical by OSHA, it will have a green label and will have just the name of the material on it. Non-hazardous chemicals will mostly be oils and greases, diesel exhaust fluid, things of that nature. Most of the other materials would be a hazardous chemical. The chemical labeling is all a requirement by OSHA for employee protection. As we move from chemicals to materials that are now being discarded or recycling, we move to EPA's area. So many chemicals were hazardous from the OSHA regulations. Very few by comparison are hazardous in the EPA world. For those that are hazardous, our internal labeling is a bright orange label. It says hazardous waste on it, and it requires that you identify the material and put the EPA codes on it and the date that that container waste is first starting to be put into the container. Examples of hazardous wastes here at Springfield are paints and solvents, aerosol cans, and corrosives. Non-hazardous wastes are also required to be labeled here at Springfield, and we use green labels that say non-hazardous waste for that. We also ask that that material to be described, and the date that that container first has waste in it is also listed on the label. The only one that EPA is very specific about the wording is used oil. And used oil must have the term used oil printed on the label. We cannot have it described as waste oil or scrap oil or waste transmission fluid as examples. It must have the words used oil. For both of these labels, if you as the contractor are generating the waste, we ask that you identify the company name and the supervisor on that label as well, so that if we have questions, we know who to get into contact with. Your project lead would tell you where to put waste containers once they have been filled. Another type of special waste that EPA regulates are fluorescent light bulbs, rechargeable batteries, and mercury-containing waste such as thermostats and switches. Under the law, these are called universal wastes, and they require this white label. Containers of these must also be labeled with the start date. And as with hazardous waste, the container must always be closed when there is nobody standing there putting material into the container. This is often forgotten with universal wastes because you're handling a battery or a light bulb and you're not thinking about something that can spill. But the EPA requirements is for a box that box is fully closed on all sides when you're not standing there putting material into it. If you empty a drum of chemicals, we ask that you put an empty label on it, identify what the contents were, and again, to put your company information and a supervisor's signature on that label. You would be working with your Navistar project manager to get labels. The sooner you identify them, the easier it is to get them to you for your work. Or you can also contact the environmental department directly while you're here and get those, and we can bring them out. Quick overview on emergency alarms. Fire alarms here at the plant are a repeating bell. It does a series of 3 alarms and then a pause, and it continues. You should be getting outside during a fire alarm. You might have a specific area listed to muster for your work crew. However, if not, follow the general crowds that are going out to the safe area. organize your group and do a roll call after you get outside. For severe weather such as tornadoes, the alarm is a solid pitch for 60 seconds. It pauses and repeats for 60 seconds. It pauses and repeats for 60 seconds again. We subscribe to a weather service that gives us warnings when severe weather will be within 3 miles of our plant. And that's when we would take shelter. If you need to contact loss prevention for an emergency, and this is for any kind of emergency, environmental spills, fires, medical, etc. From a desk phone in the plant, the number is 4911, or from your cell phone, 937-390-4911. This phone rings simultaneously at loss prevention and the medical departments, and by calling this number, you can ensure that you get the fastest response to every emergency and that they are then able to contact in-plant emergency responders and outside emergency responders in the quickest possible way. The muster areas for fire are indicated by the red stars. On the front side of the plant, B, C, and D are out in the parking lots and can be found by looking for a light pole with a sign on it and those letters. K is the gate nearest the CAS building, and that is where all CAS fire evacuations respond to. F is for the paint facility, and that is where all paint facility people will muster, no matter which exit doors you use on those facilities. A, G, and E are other muster areas inside the plant fence for various parts of the assembly building. The yellow triangles indicate storm shelters. Most of these will be locker rooms. We're not interested just in reporting spills. We want you to do what you can to prevent spills. So that means managing your bulk fluids properly. Secondary containment of drums or of fuel tanks, using valves with a dead man switch on it that cannot just drain out, protecting containers from being knocked over by moving equipment, and if you're using liquids near a drain, that you put a heavy rubber mat or some other protection around the drain. You should be contacting loss prevention on an emergency call on any spill that goes down a drain or is onto the ground or into the creek. Any spill that's over 5 gallons on the shop floor. And a spill that's less than 5 gallons if it's creating some other serious hazard. For instance, solvents that would create a fire risk, or oils or other liquids that would be on a major plant aisleway that would create slippery conditions for a forklift. When you call loss prevention for a spill, identify the material and your location in the plant, as well as your name and the company that you are with. After you've reported the spill, if it is safe to do so, stop the leak or prevent the flow from spreading until loss prevention arrives with extra materials. You would be responsible for cleaning up your own spills if it is safe to do so. The biggest and most important thing I can tell you through all of this is if you have questions on environmental issues and compliance, ask. Ask your project manager or ask us in the environmental department. It's our goal to work with your company to protect the environment, to keep both of our companies in compliance with all the laws related to chemicals and waste handling that EPA and OSHA have for us. Thank you.